Hi everybody, it's me, the Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
Welcome to Sacred Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
You are live. Janet? Janet? Are you on mute? Dr. Leslie, are you there? There she
Okay,
is.
there we are. Sorry about that. I don't know how it got it on muted. Okay, let's try it again. Aloha and welcome to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at Freedom Slips. Here, listen with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin. And today we have Melinda Leslie and Miesha Johnston. And Sasha, what would you like to say about our two guests today?
Okay, what we have today is three people, including Janet Kira Lessin, who have been to underground alien bases where they have had very interesting experiences. And so,
go ahead. Oh, I was just saying we just finished the StarWorks USA conference in Laughlin, Nevada, and we're broadcasting live from this the end of the conference here, and we'd like to begin. Ladies, who wants to go first?
Well, that's up to you guys.
Okay, let's have Melinda. Melinda, I'm going to have you go on here. Go ahead, talk. You're talking.
okay, so here comes Melinda, and she's going to tell us about her.
What do I do for a mic?
You're on the headset. Here you go. That's the mic right
Come
here.
closer.
And come here, so we don't pull it out by accident. There you
Okay,
go.
I can't
That's
hear
good. That's good.
So you've had some experience with extraterrestrials, eh?
Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah. So how did you come to the underground? What was that all about?
Oh, I've had that happen a bunch of times. I've had multiple experiences where I have gone, as you say, in underground bases. I found out in 1989, it'd be too long a story, it would take up the whole show to go into my whole thing, but I found out in 1989 that I had had alien abductions my whole life. And I started to come to terms with that. It was after a trip out to Area 51, not underground, just out there to have sightings. And it was 3 back-to-back trips. Well, that was a huge paradigm shift for me, because it was the realization that they absolutely exist. They craft absolutely exist, defy physics as I understood it, and that they were flying in and out of a known military base, so that the government was involved. And then in 93, so kind of just jumping ahead, after learning I had had alien abduction in 1993, I started to realize I had the MILAB events, the military abduction events. I was already having some harassment and surveillance, wondering what the heck is going on. Black helicopter harassment, that kind of thing, phone monitoring. And then in 93, that's when I realized I I had an experience in November of 93, and actually, first one in August of 93, and then another one in November 93. And those back-to-back experiences that were covert experiences were, as opposed to just having the alien abduction, suddenly I'm taken by military personnel and taken to underground bases. So that's what started me researching and investigating, first to figure out what was going on with me, and then I met other abductees who were having the same kinds of experiences, and researchers in the field who were working with abductees with those experiences. And now all these years later, somewhat by default, I'm kind of the last person standing as being the one known for doing what's considered the MILAB, which is an acronym for those that don't know, MIL for military and AB for abduction. You've covered this on your show,
do you
though, haven't
remember
you?
your content, what happened, or was this by hypnotic recovery?
No, I remembered both. I've always said I remember about 80% of my. That might. I shouldn't say that. There are experiences that I haven't really remembered, and prior to 1989, I wasn't aware that I was having alien abduction. So all the ones prior to 89, I did not remember consciously. It was in 89, after having all those sightings, which started me in the investigation process to realize I'd had them my whole life. But then made me realize certain experiences as a child and as a teenager and a young adult, I had brushed aside. When I found out more about alien abduction, I realized, oh, that's what was actually happening. That I'd written off these periods of missing time and marks on my body and other things, and, just had moved on, didn't know what was causing it. Well, now I know, but, and then, and then, like I said, realizing I had the covert experiences, which was, again, the surveillance and the harassment, being watched, being followed, phone monitoring, phone interruptions, and then black helicopter, and then to realize that I was having experiences actually involving the military, being taken from my apartment by being drugged by guys in camouflage and removed from my apartment. And then years later, here I thought that this all started for me as far as the military experiences in August, November of 93. And then years later, running into an old roommate of mine from 1990 and 90 and 91, and running into that old roommate and having, when I was telling her about figuring out about the military experiences and researching that, because we got together and we ran into each other and we met for lunch or whatever. She said, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing this." And she said, "Are you still doing stuff with the abduction stuff?" And I, alien abduction. And I said, "Yes." And I said, "I've discovered this other aspect." And she said, "Oh, I'm so glad you know that now." And it struck me. And I was like, "What do you mean that I know that now?" And she said, "Oh." And she proceeded to go on and tell me when she was my roommate that she had witnessed stuff happen. I already knew she'd witnessed alien abductions. I always give the story of her witnessing my being gone and seeing an alien in the house during one of my experiences early on that helped me come to terms with the fact that this was a very real thing for me. But then, here all these years later, like late 90s, and I meet up with her, and she tells me in 1990, so it's like 6-7 years later, she told me in 1990 that she witnessed my having military experiences. And she had a 14-year-old daughter who'd come to live with us briefly. Her and her husband were separated and in the process of getting a divorce. And her 14-year-old daughter, who lived with her husband, with her ex, they were having a difficult relationship. So briefly, the 14-year-old daughter came to live. She moved out under 3 months, but then she moved out. And I was told she missed her dad. So at the time I was told she missed her dad and she wanted to go back to be with her dad. Now my roommate Gail is telling me, no, she didn't miss her dad. Her daughter moved out because she was so freaked out by what was happening to me. And so, but moving just right along is that they were woken up, according to my old roommate, more than once. Her and her 14-year-old daughter were woken up by what she said were military men yelling orders at me in the night And my crying and pleading and saying, no, 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 you can't make me, I don't want to do it. And they'd be woken up by this. I had, prior to August of 93, I had no clue that that had ever happened. So going back to what you just said about my memory. So obviously those things happen I didn't know, but I do remember a lot of my experiences. I probably remember, half of my experiences consciously, and then of a given experience that I remember somewhat consciously, I kind of say I probably remember 80% of that experience. But for as much as I remember, and I've remembered consciously, there's obviously been experiences, both alien and military ones, that I don't remember.
Okay.
So I don't know what I remember and what I don't. Does that make sense? I only remember what I remember.
So let's start with the alien. What did the aliens look like? What happened exactly? Blah blah blah.
Oh, that'd take a long explanation.
Let's start with
I've seen in my own experiences, I have seen 8 different types of beings. 5 of them have been in what we would call the category of grays. As you know, grays is a category. It's not one type. There's multiple variations on grays, including hybrid grays. So I have seen 5 different variations on grays, including short, squatty ones, the tall, what called the elder grays with the sunken cheeks and pronounced cheekbones and wrinkly foreheads. I've seen the elder grays. I've seen the young, stocky guys. I've seen what are people call the powder whites or the glow whites that have more of an almond-shaped eye, and they often look like they're kind of powdery. And these are all things that many, 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 many abductees, thousands of abductees have shared these accounts. So I've seen typical, like I say, and hybrids. So I've seen 5 variations on grays. And then I've seen what are called the insectoids, which are the mantis beings. Twice for sure, maybe 3 times. I'd have to think about that for a minute, but at least twice, I think 3 times that I remember. Okay. I've seen reptilians once or twice. I'll say once absolutely for certain with the reptilian. And then I've seen Nordics, probably that I remember about 5 times, I think, that I've seen Nordic individuals, which are the human-looking ones. That often, they're called Nordics because traditionally they were referred to as Nordic-looking people.
Okay,
now that's just a catch-all phrase.
Can we take one incident so I get a picture of the sequence of what it meant to you with a part of the 80%? What happened in
Well,
ABC?
I've had ovum taken from me many times. That's so common in abductions. That men have sperm taken, women have ovum, eggs taken.
Let's start with
I've been presented with hybrid children.
How were you taken? Let's start. You're sleeping in your bed.
Different.
Okay.
I've been taken from my bed. I've been taken from hotel rooms. I've been taken while traveling. I've been taken in the car. I've been taken in a variety of situations.
What does taken mean?
Taken on board craft.
How were you taken?
Okay.
Describe what happens when you're taken by
different ways, different times.
Tell one of them.
Okay, I'll start with one. One time I was traveling with 2 male friends, and we're on a mountain road. I share this one a lot because, as you know, I do these UFO sighting tours where I take people out with military night vision goggles to have UFO sightings. The only reason I bring that up is to say there have been many times on my tours where my clients, I've taken out 4,500 clients. I've done almost 700 tours now. And my clients will tell us about your abduction. So there's one experience I'm used to sharing.
Okay.
So it comes easy.
Okay.
And also I was on a TV show that covered this particular incident. But it was myself and 2 male friends were driving on a mountain road. We were going out to an area that was having a lot of UFO activity. We were living in Southern California. We were going over Angeles Crest Highway called N2, going out from like the Pasadena area out to the Lancaster Palmdale area as a shortcut rather than go all the way past JPL and all that and out to the 14 freeway from, I think it's the 210. Instead, you can cut over Highway 14. Cut over Angeles Crest Highway, which is Highway N2, to get out to the 14 freeway. And so it's just a shortcut to go over the mountain. And we'd done this many, many times. We'd gone out to this area to investigate sightings. There was a sighting wave going on out there at the time. And so we started off this one evening to go out there and do an investigation. And also a friend of ours lives out there, so we'd gone out to where he lived. And we headed out, and we ended up having a period of significant missing time of at least 2 hours, maybe 3, at least 2, and I think closer to 3 hours when I really redo it in my head. And we were driving along. Now, I'll call it memory A and memory B. Memory A is what we first remembered, and this is very typical. And then memory B is what we remembered later, both consciously and with the aid of regressive hypnosis, which we also ended up getting. But memory A is we're driving along, and this could take all night, but I'll try to be brief. We're driving along. Memory A is we had a lot of sightings of animals while driving over this mountain road, and there was a lot of discussion about seeing the animals. And then all of a sudden, we thought we had a UFO sighting. I was in the back passenger seat. My friend Mike was driving, and Steve was in the front passenger seat. Steve and I were leaning out the right of the car, looking up. We were facing the side of the mountain going uphill, okay? And then the driver's side was the side that went downhill. And so we're looking up through the trees and everything. We look up in the sky, and we thought we saw two objects moving around, two lights. And we're having a discussion about it. And all of a sudden, Mike, the driver, says, I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm seeing something over here to the left, and there's a light that's been following straight out from the car, pacing the car. So we're saying, no, it's on the right, and he's saying, no, it's on the left, like we're having an argument about where's the sighting, or sightings, as the case may be. And then all of a sudden, the electronics in the car are all going haywire. And we were going out to do this investigation. So they had all this radar detector in the car, a police scanner, scanners to scan the base activity that were set at that frequency, because we were going out near the Lancaster Palmdale area and Edwards Air Force Base, and a police scanner so they would know if there was any activity going on at the base that night. My friend just happened to have a radar detector in his car for, police. And then we had a high-powered 50 candle watt powered light we were taking out there with us, and we had walkie-talkies in the car. We had the car stereo on that also had a cassette tape deck in it. This was in 1990, and so we had all this equipment. Well, it all started to go haywire. It was making buzzing and popping noises, and some of it we couldn't get to turn on. Some of it was stuff related to the electronics of the car. Now, the car was running. The lights were working, so that wasn't a problem. But everything else, and even I think maybe occasionally the lights flickered. So even that, but luckily didn't affect the running of the car. But everything else was malfunctioning. And we had just gone to a restaurant before hitting the road. And anyways, just to jump ahead, so I'm going to take too long. But we'd had drinks and used a restroom. Well, all of a sudden, we all had to go to the bathroom. It's like, we just used a restroom like an hour ago. Why do we all have to go? This is crazy. So we had to go to the bathroom. We were really thirsty. We ended up eventually hitting the 14 freeway, got off right away to exit. The guys, we had already pulled over, and the guys had gone and done what they can do in nature to relieve themselves. And I said, oh, you guys, I'll wait. I was okay with going out in nature, but I said, I'll wait. So I sat in the car. Well, so by the time we got into civilization, which was probably only a half hour later, at this point. But I was like, I need a restroom. So we instantly got the first sign of life at an exit. And we pulled into a Circle K, or no, a 7-Eleven convenience store. I ran in and used the restroom. All three of us got large drinks. Back then, I wasn't a big water drinker. I got a liter of water. That's, the really tall single bottle. I mean, I drank an entire liter, gulped it down. The guys did the same thing. We were all thirsty. And we get back in the car, and the driver goes back into the stores talking to the clerk in the store, comes back and says, what time do you guys think it is? And we're like, well, we planned to get out there about 10:30. And we said, well, we know we're a little bit late. It's probably about 11. Well, it turned out it was 2:30 in the morning.
Oh.
Yeah, so we had missing time. And that's Mike, the driver, had gone back in the store to ask the clerk. The clerk showed him the clock on the register and a clock on the wall, showing, proving in multiple sources what time it was. And he came back to the car and said, informed us how late it really was. So we realized at that point we had missing time. Then we go to set out to go where we were supposed to go view, which from there would have been only half an hour drive from right there. We got horribly lost. Turned out we'd been there many, many times. Well, for some reason, we got out the wrong way and went the opposite direction from the freeway than we were supposed to go. We were out driving around the desert, completely lost on a bunch of little side streets. The sun started to come up at this point, where, because it's 2:33 in the morning, and now before we noticed, like 4, and the sun's starting to come up in the distance, and we were all really tired. We were arguing the whole time. We said, oh, screw it, it's too late. Sun's coming up, let's just go home. So we headed back home. In the days and weeks to follow, we all had bits and pieces of memory come forward. So just jumping ahead here, we all had bits and pieces of memory, and we all had a little bit of conscious memory. About 2 months after the event, at that time I was working with a hypnotherapist, so I got regressive hypnosis. And then the guys were dragging their heels, and the hypnotherapist and I were both constantly kind of trying to get them to do it. We couldn't really push them. They were my friends, but we kept saying, you guys should get regress, you should get regress, it'd be great, whatever. One of the guys, it was like 10 months after the event, and the other one was like a year. So over a period of a year, the three of us had multiple regressions each, as well as our own conscious memory. And that hypnotherapist, we worked with the same hypnotherapist, but of course our regressions weren't at the same time, obviously, they were all different. And one night we got together with her for dinner, and she said, we clearly recalled the identical same experience.
So what did you remember?
Okay, so memory B. So that was all memory B.
Okay.
I mean memory A. I'm sorry, it's memory A. So now memory B. Memory B is, okay, we're driving along, we have all these sightings of animals, we have the sightings up in the air of possible craft, and that debate going on. In the middle of saying, no, they're on the right, and Mike saying, no, there's one pacing us on the left, suddenly there's like 3 bright arc light flashes in the car, and it was like, zzz, zzz, inside the car. And we're like, what the hell is that? Well, my friend, Steve has a sensitivity to light. So he goes, oh my God, that's so bright. And all of a sudden, Mike starts bringing the car to a stop. And at first I thought it was like an electrical fire or something, like one of the pieces of technology in the car or something had exploded, because I was like, what the hell was that? And Mike said, I don't know. I goes, that the car? He goes, no, it's not the car. And all of a sudden he's bringing the car to a stop. And I go, Mike, why are you stopping the car? He doesn't even have his hands on the steering wheel. His hands are up, and he says, I'm not doing it. That is. And he's literally not even steering the car. There was a gray alien standing in the road, and the car is being brought slowly to a stop and then pulled over to the right over on the shoulder. So we're like, we're going to hit it. Well, no, they pulled the car over to the right. But the car was under some kind of control, and there was this gray standing in the road. Well, at this point, Steve in the front passenger seat freaks out. As soon as the car comes to a stop, 2 grays come around to his door, do what's called mind stare, if you've heard of that abductions. They look at him in his eyes, and they touched his forehead, and they kind of knocked him out. Mike, the driver, starts getting out of the car on his own. I'm like, Mike, what are you doing? I thought he was under some kind of control. He said later, it came out in his regressions, that he just wanted to show like he wasn't afraid. And I didn't realize prior to this experience, he had also, like me, had been a lifelong abductee. But prior to that event, I did not know that. So it turned out, but he wanted to say, I'm not afraid of this. He wanted to be like in control. So he got out of the car on his own. I'm immobilized, maybe because I'm sure now, retrospectively, it was because I was kind of freaking out. I was still concerned about my friends. But they immobilized me, which meant I was just, paralyzed. And they floated me up out over the back seat. The back of the car had a hatch door, it opened up, and I was floated out the back of the car and set down on my feet on the road. At this point, there's a craft landed on the road. I kind of remembered hovering off the side with a ramp coming down. The guy said, no, it was landed in the road. Okay, whatever. It's right there in front of the car. And the 3 of us are walked up a ramp onto the craft, where we are then undressed. Anyways, just jumping right ahead because I'm taking up too much time again. But we were undressed. We were taken into a brightly lit room. We went through an exam procedure.
Did you?
They went to take sperm from. They went to take sperm from Mike, and had discovered he had had a vasectomy. They did take ovum from me. Steve had kind of freaked out, so they just had him sitting in this kind of like reclining, almost like a dentist chair, kind of or outpatient surgery reclining chair.
Slow down. When you said they did these things, did you resist?
Well, no, you're not of your own free will. I mean, we were immobilized. We were immobilized at the point they walked us up the ramp. So we were walking onto the craft, but we were led by ETs. But obviously under some kind of influence or control. And then when we get up and there's kind of this darkly lit area where they had us stand facing each other, we were immobilized while they undressed us. So in fact, Deborah Troncalli, the psychotherapist we worked with, who was also did regressive hypnosis, Dr. Deborah Troncalli. Unfortunately, she's no longer around, but she ended up saying we were all so concerned about each other. We were of our conscious, present mind, even though we couldn't move. We were trying to give each other, like we could move our eyes, and we were trying to give each other reassuring glances, like, I'm okay, don't worry about me. Like we were all more concerned about each other. And Deborah said it was very touching in our regressions because we were all each so concerned about each other and not about ourselves. Because we were like, don't freak out, it's okay. You know, we're like trying to all reassure each other just by giving us glances. But then when they moved us into this other room, again, we were walked. And so that there was that temporary paralysis until we walked into the other room. And I was put on a table to have ovum taken. Mike was put on an exam table to have sperm taken. They discovered he had had a vasectomy and were questioning him about that. Like, why would you do this to yourself? Steve, who'd kind of freaked out, remember they'd kind of shut him down. They had him in like a reclining chair with like a headset thing on.
Wait, let's go back to questioning. Were they talking?
Yeah, it's all telepathy. At least in my abductions,
so you could
it's
hear
all telepathy.
them telepath with each other, even not. I see. Okay.
Yes. It's all telepathy. There are times in my abductions where I've gotten emotional and spoken out, like either told them off or got mad or whatever. You know, it's all telepathy, except for I've realized if I get, particularly if I get upset, I'm yelling at them or something. So I have spoken out loud, but a lot of it is, but all their response to me from the ETs in all my experiences has just been telepathy. And so in this experience, so that's what happened. Eventually we were, like I said, there was kind of an exam. They went to take ovum from him, but weren't able to. Sperm from him, and weren't able to, but they took ovum from me. And Steve, they just had this headset thing on. They ended up showing Mike some technology thing that they ended up showing him. And anyways, just to jump ahead, but we were eventually taken back to where our clothes were on our own. Our clothes were like left in a neat little pile. We were instructed to get dressed on our own, in which case we did. They walked us back down the ramp and put us back in the car. But at the point when we got back in the car, it was like suddenly we were immobilized, and they positioned us in the car like positioning mannequins, putting everything back exactly like it was when we stopped. The car starts up, Mike starts driving down the road, and that's when all the electronics went haywire. So the rest of the experience matches what I'd already shared, but that's when all the electronics were going haywire. As soon as the car started up, all the electronics, the car worked, but everything else was going, beep, 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 it was making all these weird noises.
Okay, so I just wanted to get a baseline of a non-military. We'll come back to you, and we'll do Miesha.
Yes.
And then we'll start looking at what happens when the MILABs.
The one you wanted to address, at least before the show, is you said the abduction that we had. Well, right. Actually, Miesha and I have had a couple experiences together. I'll ask you, I didn't know which of the experiences you wanted us to share. Were you talking about
I want to know about the underground experience that you shared together. That's all.
We shared two, right, Miesha?
Yeah, so
right, Miesha, we shared two?
I don't remember the second one.
We'll let Miesha.
Well, the second one, remember, was, we had the one with the reptilian, right? Okay. Right. And then we had the one at the conference.
Oh, yes. Too.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the one at the conference or the reptilian one?
I'll talk about the conference.
Okay.
Okay, so now we'll bring her on. So
okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll bring you back. And,
okay. Well, yeah. So that she's going to start about what happened at the conference, and then I'll come on and share my part of that.
Yes, you got.
Military abduction. A military abduction with. We don't know exactly how many people. I would say 12 to 15 people.
Wow.
But get her account, and if there's time, you can have me back on.
Way cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so now we have Melisha Johnston, and she's.
That's why I said, which one do you want to cover?
She'll choose which one she wants to cover.
Can I wear my group?
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know how long. tired, but obviously.
Hello.
Hello. Good to
Hi.
see you.
Thanks for having me here. Well, mine started in right around 1992. My first experience I had, and I will go into some of the that have the helicopters and the funny telephone interruptions and things like that. So I knew they were watching me. But what was very, very startling to me was my son. So I'm going to go back up and just do a couple of
Sure.
those. Okay.
Of course.
All right. Well, my memory is, I'll show you what my memory is, and I'll tell you in regression what else I got.
Perfect.
All right. So my memory is I'm in an elevator. I'm in the middle of a group of people, and they're all kind of zombified. And some are dressed, some are not, some are in pajamas, some are naked. And then there is a guard, a military uniformed, black uniformed man standing right at the elevator, and he has a gun. So that's what I remember. When we go down the elevator, down, 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 and then the elevator opens. I do remember something strange about the elevator. It was different. I cannot ever get that whole thing, but it opened different. So anyway, as we were ushered out, I looked off to my right, and there were tall grays, and then to the left, because you only can do with your eyes. That's it. You can't move your head. You can't do anything. All you can do is move your eyes. And I saw over to the left, military. I then looked over to the right and saw that one of those people being ushered off was my son, my 13-year-old son.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And so I never saw him again. And I don't remember what happened from that point on. Okay, so then in the regression, we find out how it begins. A van is like a bus type of thing. It's like the van stop. We're in a van. It's a large van. It's like a tractor trailer van. And there's a lot of people in there and on each side. And as we stop, it's like they're picking up people. It's like that type of thing. Okay, they must be, they're picking up people. Again, that you're in and out of consciousness. So that's when they picked us up. And then they took us to the underground base. So that would have been it at that age, definitely Area 51 somewhere.
Oh.
Yeah, somewhere in Area 51. So really that's all I have. I haven't gone to because I haven't done really any more regression. And it came up in one regression just briefly because I was worried about my son and how they got him, and that's how they got him. Okay, so the other one is when I was, actually I shared that with you today, but when I was by myself in the underground base and I was walking with a reptilian, and I knew I was walking with a reptilian. Now we're in some kind of I think because it's military, it could be drugs. So it's scopolamine is a type of drug that makes you move and react, do whatever they say. And you have no control over anything. So you do whatever is told to do. There's also some hypnotic suggestions, especially with me because I'm an MK Ultra and I have been trauma-based mind control since 3 years old. So I'm a pretty easy target for them to take back under. I know that. I'm a really fast regression person. And I know that's probably because of the post-traumatic hypnotic suggestions. So at this time, I'm walking with this reptilian. I know it is. I know there's a reptilian beside me, but I see these soldiers passing. I see these soldiers, but they won't ever look at him. They won't ever look. There's no other reptilians around. I just see this one. I haven't seen any more in the hall. And I know I have a reptilian beside me, and I see this soldier, and he's looking at me up and down, but he doesn't look at the reptilian. And I thought, that's so odd. Why doesn't he look at the reptilian? I know I have a reptilian. I'm just thinking this, and all of a sudden, this very curt energy with kind of a combination of a voice, very unusual, but more my mind's talking to me, but it's him. And he says, because they know they must honor us. They know better. That's all he said.
These military, are they wearing U.S. military
They're wearing
uniforms?
black uniforms.
Black uniforms.
There's no insignia. Well, yeah, there is one insignia I can see. I can see a triangle that's a pin pointed downward. That's really all I can see on that one. And then later on in that same experience, I'm taking and I don't know if it's that same experience or another one, to tell you the truth. But this is the memory that I have on this. Is that again, and I believe it was the same reptilian. So that's why I think it's the same experience. And I think to myself, why are you invading us? Why do you want to take our planet? And he quickly came back again with this very, very, very rough kind of energy. That because it's not your planet, it's our planet. We were here first, you're the invaders. Well, it made me understand something. Because I started doing some research after there and realized, with your research, of course, I didn't know you then, but with Zachary Sitchin's research and some other things that, well, dang, maybe they were here first. So I can understand how they can. However, what I can't understand is how our military, our factions are black ops, not military, our black ops, our shadow government can take people and who are experiencers and re-abduct them to find out things about propulsion, to find out what we've learned, because there's classes that go on in these UFOs. I mean, you feel like you're learning things. Like I remember seeing screens that were like holographic screens, but they had imagery such as languages that I had no idea what it were, and I believe that's where I started learning how to do galactic language. But of course, one of the reasons that the military is interested in us is because we can communicate with the aliens. They can't. Other people have talked about how they can communicate with different aliens, different, organic ships and stuff. But the government can't. So they want to know what we know. And that's why, so they want to know our psychic abilities, also maybe what we've learned, what we picked up, and those types of things. Okay, so fast forwarding, again, because I'm MK Ultra, I've had a lot of missing time. I even had a missing marriage. I'm 8.5 months missing completely, so I'm not going to go into that, but I'm a MILAB MK Ultra. And so when Melinda and I met each other, we started to work together in researching the whole theory. She was the MILAB specialist. I knew more about the monarch. And so we wanted to work together and find out, how does this work together? Because the military harassment and mind control of the MILAB experience. We could see it happening with our lives and then with other people who we interviewed. So we were researching to write a book. And I know that book would have been very important, but I believe it was maybe 20 years too early. Because that is when, after being on an Art Bell show, a day later after that, we were working on more of our research and maybe something like, I think we were having a conference that we were going to be speaking or something.
Yeah, going to a conference.
Going to a conference. So we were working on that. And so she slept on my couch and I went to bed. And the next morning, we woke up and my coffee table was broken. And I said, Melinda, how's my coffee table broken? And she says, I don't know. I have no idea. Well, we both had this odd energy. It was like, let's get out of here. So she went back to her home, which was Laguna, which was some hour away or so. And but we both individually felt really creepy. There was something going on. I knew that something had happened, and because my coffee was broken, she said, I promise you I didn't do it, So I decided I'd check it, and I had a regression, and I found out that in the middle of the night, men with night vision goggles had come in and had my part of it, I don't know, was that they had dragged me down the stairs and put me in a van. And with her, she was groggy, I believe it was, and when they went to grab her off the couch, she lost her balance, or they were not holding her well, and she fell on my coffee table. And that's how my coffee table got
Okay,
broken.
so this seems really different than the floating out that happens with the grays. This is
Right.
people lifting and
using
drag you.
using drugs to because I was basically grabbed on each and carried down the thing. You're just so there's nothing ET about this experience until we get to the underground base. All right, so I will go ahead and tell that part. So she's in the van one way and I'm in the van the other way, so that we're feet to feet, so we can't talk. The next thing I remember is I remember a couple little tiny movements and stuff, but I was mostly out. Next thing I remember, I'm sitting on this like a doctor's table kind of thing, and this military guy, and he's got brass on him here, and he's got something here, and I don't know that kind of stuff because I've never been in the military, but he's prancing back and forth and cussing at us and saying, you are done. This is over. You are not doing this again. You're not talking about this anymore. It's through. You're not going on any radio shows. You're not going to finish your book. It's over. This is your last warning. Well, I had several warnings, and as well as Melinda, I'm sure. But I'd had warnings. I'd had this crazy guy after me who was we found out when I went to the police and stuff, and that he was actually from prison, and it was a sex offender. Yes, and he was a sex offender, and I had gotten away from that situation, but it's a long story, so I can't even go into that one. But we are. So I realize when they're saying that they're really getting pissed. And he says, you have got to learn that you need to go back home to Las Vegas and find yourself a husband and get married and forget about this because it's not going to bring you any happiness. Now, I've heard that same phrase from my captors or the Shadow Government Black Ops 3 times. So, okay, so then fast forward, and I am... he's saying more, and he's cussing. He says, and to bring the point home, I want you to meet somebody. So he walks out of the room. Now, understand, I'm kind of drugged, so everything is like moving, kind of like maybe if you were on LSD or something. I don't think I've been on LSD, but the movies seem to say that because you can't see far away. So I couldn't see far away. And so my focus was just very short. And in walks this very tall, I'd say a goldish green color of reptilian. He's 7.5 feet tall. He comes over to me. He bends down, he looks in my eyes, and it's like the Vulcan mind meld, which I've had before with the reptilians on the underground base or another time. That time they were trying to find out what my Ayano, who is other reptilians, but of a positive service to others group, who actually told me that they had been at war with these draconian raptor types for eons. So anyway, so this one gleams in my eyes and puts the most horrendous thing that has to do with my family and my children, and I'm not sure. Sometimes I talk about it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just go with my heart. Anyway, well, okay, I guess I will. That there's ninjas, black ninja kind of soldiers. They're like one of these ninjas is what they are. And they've got these big wide swords about this wide. And my family is there chopping them up. And I can see this, I can feel this, but it's different. The sound is not like real, So I break kind of the gaze and I go, is this real or is this Memorex? That's what comes through my head. I don't know why. Maybe because of the things that happened in my past, and I knew that they used holographic imagery there too. So, once it broke that gaze, I can't tell you what happened to him. I didn't see him leave. I don't remember anything after that. So Melinda had her own experience that I will let her share about. And I don't know too much. I did do a regression on this so I could get a little bit more information, because I didn't even know that I was part of that group of 12 people that were abducted over at the Fiesta in Henderson at the Super Soldier Summit. But indeed I was.
So let me understand, the people were all associated with this
Super Soldier Summit. We were all speakers. I think it was mostly speakers. There were some people who were probably presenters. Everybody who got abducted, I believe, were either presenters or on the panel. So some of the, well, I'm going to let her tell that part too. But James Casbolt and another one who were super soldiers were probably mind controlled into being our captors. So they took us and took us down down the freight elevator back to the back. We saw. So what I saw was that. Then the next memories I have is I'm standing up against this wall at the loading dock, and there's several people, but again I'm not seeing really people far away, only close up. And I see Niara. Now. I didn't see Niara until after I came back from the van. So they ushered one by one. They took us across this little ramp over into some Yellow Rider trucks. And that was not my memory. I could not remember that. It's other people's memory. My next memory after seeing Niara, I believe, coming out, I was sitting in the chair. I just felt like I just got shot on in the left side of my neck, and I guess I must have opened my eyes because they said a few little shorted words, really kind of nasty things. But the basis of it, he says, "Don't worry, you're just here for your yearly checkup." Well, that really freaked me out because, as far as I was concerned, I'd cancel all these damn contracts in 2000, and I really figured it was all done. But evidently it wasn't all done. Contracts. Because, in 2000, after the abduction, after several other threats, after the sex guy that was after me, offender that was after me, and then also a man who was supposed to be somebody I was going to interview for the book that we were writing and the research. He came in and he was in I was meeting him in a restaurant, and he says, he walks up and he says, "Well, you have a cute little granddaughter there in blank to blank." I'm not going to say where. And I said, "Excuse me?" And he said, "How do you know that?" "Oh, we know everything. We know all about you. We know about your 2 sons, your daughter-in-law, your grandchild. We know everything about everybody. And, they find people's bones in the desert all the time. So it's time for you." And there was a few things back and forth, but I won't go into all that detail. And then, but his basics of his message was, "It's time for you to go home and get married and forget about all this, because it's not going to bring you any happiness." Again, same words. I have to go into a regression to find out what those mean. I have to do that. I haven't done it in the future. I'll have to do it in the future.
But they were threatening to kill your...
my family. Yeah. Yes, my family. So that was and that was after our abduction at the what we believe was either Pendleton or Miramar, we're not sure. So in that area, anyway, it could have been someplace else. It was in San Diego. Okay, so then I headed home to tell my kids I'm done. I'm not going to put my family in jeopardy anymore. So I headed home, and on the way home, I was driving in the middle lane. I moved over to the fast lane. I was going 72. I had my cruise control on at 72. And then I went back, and so I didn't go into, I'm sorry, I was in the middle lane, and I had to move over to the other lane because all of a sudden, coming back and forth from San Diego, they have a truck lane. So these truckers drive real slow. So all of a sudden, out from the middle of two semi-trucks comes this white van, unmarked, no markings, no writing on it. And he shoves me off, and doesn't hit me, but he pushes me. I knew I had to go to the next lane, and then I lost control, went down into the middle, came back up to the other side just enough that I was able to pull it back so I wasn't over there, but maybe, a second or two, and I went back down, and I came to a very amazing soft landing because of my angels, and at a cactus tree, a yucca tree.
So you were totally off the road.
So I was totally in between, in the medium, right in the medium, because it comes down like this.
Oh, in the middle, uh-huh.
So I went up that way, back down, and hit that tree. Now, you okay? Okay. Well, I was in my, it's like a trans, I was in my, a car that has a T-top. And the only thing that happened was my fender was busted off because of that. It took the impact wonderfully, and I had some of the tree inside the car with me because I had the T-top, and just a couple of little scratches, nothing at all, much at all. So I was angelically protected because I was going 72 miles when they pushed me off the road. An hour.
And the truckers saw you getting run off the road by
right.
this white truck.
Yeah, I have a police report about it because it was a hit and run is what they considered it. So the truckers told me, they said, that was the strangest thing. We there's this truck that comes in. They radioed and told they were talking back and forth about this van that comes zipping up. And it goes shoom, right in the middle and just stays there. And they go, what the hell is this guy doing in the middle? And he hasn't moved out or anything. And then the witnesses saw that he pushed me off the road.
Wow.
So the truck that was behind, he had been talking to them. So he knew that story. So that's how I knew about that. But he said that I witnessed the whole thing. This guy came out from the trucks up there and just pushed you off the road. It almost looked like he did it on purpose. And I'm good. He did. He did do it on purpose. So fortunately, I was able to drive the car after some help. My son came and we took the fender off. And
so they tried to kill you.
They tried. Well, I guess it was. I guess they tried to kill me, or they were sending the biggest message they could do. I don't know. So I got back home and I gave everything to my sons and I said, I'm out. That's it. I'm done. And I left. So for over almost 9 years, I tried to live in the regular world, but it doesn't work for us. Once you're awake, you can never go back to sleep.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I got back into it in 2011, and now I'm going strong with support groups for people who are experiencers. Of course, I did that in '92. I started support groups, but then now I have not only at my home a couple of a month, I have on the internet for people who are experiencers every Sunday. And then I have, they can find me at Starseed Awakening, ET Contactee Experiencer Group, or they can go on my website, starseedawakening.org, and go to the services, and it will take them right to the different sites that they can join. I also have an MK Ultra, MILAB, because I am that too, and a Monarch, DID, and Super Soldier, and target individual groups that I facilitate as well.
So no ill became you or your relatives. They didn't follow through on the threat.
I don't know. I'll tell you why I don't know. Because I got back into it in 2011, and my mother died in 2011. Now, she was 98, okay? Then 2 years later, my brother died in 2009. My mother died in 2011. My sister died in 2013. My brother who was in a secret organization working for the government, he died in 2015. I don't know.
Under what kind of circumstances?
Two of them died of cancer. One died of a disease. She went to the hospital with pneumonia, and she ended up getting that disease that they have in the hospital.
Mercy.
Mercy, one of those. Yeah. And my other brother died of lung cancer. My one brother died right after he was retired from his civil service job where he had worked in the secret parts. He fell in his backyard, which is just not like my brother. Thank you. Oh, except that's making it worse. He fell in the backyard, which broke. Oh, you're done.
We'll be back after a break.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, my name is Mr. Rowe. I am the host of Reality Extraction on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I utilize logic, intellect, and magic to methodically atomize, vivisect, analyze, examine, study, scrutinize, and extract an essence of reality from a fog of illusion and confusion. You can find me on Studio B every Thursday at 1700 hours Pacific Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. No topic taboo, no subject too strange. I strive to take a neutral standpoint during the dissection of the topic at hand. That's Reality Extraction with Mr. Rowe on Revolution Radio.
Hi everybody, it's me, the Fetch, host of Inside the Eye Live. Before the Sunday mainstream media political pundit talk shows, there is Inside the Eye Live, where we break down some of the weekly mainstream media talking points before the talking points even get aired. Add in some entertaining stories, weather, cats, intriguing and informative guests, and you get one of the most listened to Saturday morning streaming media political talk shows going today. And it's all right here on our flagship station, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. So join me, The Fetch, for Inside the Eye Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern. It is truly intelligent media for the politically aware.
And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? We will run. And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while.
The future is uncertain. I know this. Death is inevitable. I know this. But one thing is certain. As free men, it is our right to live unencumbered and in peace. And those times are quickly drawing to an end. And in these times, peace is certainly an illusion. And as the chains grow tighter, our ability to slip those chains increase incrementally with every passing moment. Inaction is no longer an option. It's time to raise our voices like a cacophony of thunder and lightning and tell the masters no more. And this is Nighthawk, and I say, for myself, no more. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, because the freedom is slipping away.
she'd be the first to admit this.
Aloha and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And before we get back to our show, I want to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on freedomslips.com and donate what you can. $1, $5, $15, $20, whatever you can donate is greatly appreciated, and we do really appreciate your donation. Ahmad, any specials this week?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's good. When we left for the commercial break, we were talking to Miesha Johnston, and she was telling us about an incident where she was run off the car and what happened to her family afterward. So she wanted to finish up and tell us something. So
Okay, well, thank you. I'll just finish the situation, and of course, my brother just fell in the backyard, and then that was within 6 months of his retirement. And then the next thing that happened to him, while he's recuperating from the broken legs and a hip thing, he's in a wheelchair and he falls over in an electrical wheelchair, and so then he breaks his collarbone and everything. And then within 1 year of his retirement, he was dead. There was nothing that we knew what was wrong with him. He went into the hospital and he started having problems with his throat and breathing, and he couldn't talk anymore.
Right.
Now, to me, that is definitely, I don't know about the rest of them, but that one, when you take somebody's voice away from them, which, by the way, when my father died on his deathbed and told me sorry for what he had done to me because he was in the mind control, his voice had been taken away from him too. He had throat cancer. But my brother didn't have throat cancer. It was odd that he just couldn't talk all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now his spouse is. I'm sorry.
Your brother, could he communicate with pen and paper?
He did with his wife. Yeah, and he did actually say to me, because I told him on the phone and I could hear him squeaking, and I said, you know, they did this to you. They did this, don't you know? And later on, she said, before he could not talk at all anymore, he said, because that was early on, and he didn't really give me his opinion, but he said, I think my sister's right. I think they did. So then, all of a sudden, after 8 months, he's passed away. Before even have an anniversary of his death, his wife now has lung cancer. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, but I got to tell you, I'm fighting, and I'm going to continue to fight. The book is going to be written. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm not going to stop. And my groups are very important to me. They're on Zoom. People can go and talk with other people who also have had these experiences. So that's about it.
Well, we'll come back to you. We're going to go back to Melinda. And pardon us while we change seats here.
The changing of the guards.
Changing of the guard. All right, so you're going to fill in some.
No, I'm not hearing through these.
No, you're not going to. We're fine. So you're going to fill in some of the blanks in the story or the parts that.
Yeah. No,
exactly.
Thank you, Miesha, but I didn't realize we're going to talk about both, but that's okay. She did, and I can get into both. She'd be the first to acknowledge that I remember more.
Yes, always you do.
I didn't pull out of the field. I stayed with it and continued to also have further regressive hypnosis sessions over these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I'll get into both of those.
Yeah.
So I guess start with that. The first one there.
It's...
Well, the reason I had gone to her place in San Diego, I was living in Corona del Mar, California at the time, Laguna area, right, just north of there, between Laguna Beach and Newport Beach. Mm-hmm. But I had gone to her place, and I'll try to be concise for the sake of time, because I could go into great detail about these, because I have a lot of recall and a lot of regression, but just I'll try to be brief. We were going to be, long story short, roughly, presenters together up at the Bay Area UFO conference the following weekend. And so I had gone down there because we said, well, we'll spend a weekend and prepare, because we were going to have a table,
Right.
conference table,
Right.
like you guys have here this weekend, and have materials out. And so we wanted to make some signage and some copies and whatnot. And actually, I take that back too. That was also when we were doing the radio program. That was the night before that we were on
We
Coast
was
to
on
Coast
coast to
with-
coast.
yeah.
The night before.
coast to coast, but not with. It was pre-George Nor, obviously, and post Art Belt was with Mike Siegel, the host when Art retired the first time.
Okay.
For those who are familiar with the history of that.
Right.
And and yes, we were also going to go to the conference, so it was a double reason to be down there. And we had done the radio interview either Friday or Saturday, and this was the
Doesn't
next
really
day.
matter, just go on.
Yeah, anyways, but it was the next day. And I'll start with, I'm on a futon couch in the living room, and she had a roommate at the time who was out of town. And I'm on the futon couch in the living room. She is on her master, in her master bedroom.
Mhm.
And I'm awoken by sounds at the front door that sounded like maybe I thought at the time when I was awoken, I thought her roommate had come home early and was trying to get in the front door, and maybe was, like if someone's can't quite get their keys out, or it's
Right,
not
yeah.
working and they're fiddling with the lock. And I heard all this fiddling, and I'm like, it sounded like someone trying to break in, but it sounded like maybe, again, I was just under the assumption when the door opened that it was her roommate, and I was just waking up.
Uh-huh.
And the door flies open.
Wow.
It flies open really hard and even slams or whatever. And I'm like, what the heck? And coming towards me are two guys, all in dark, black.
Right.
It was dark in the room, not completely. I think it's a little outside light was coming in, but these guys come in, and they have what I recognize as military helmets, which are not big but tight fitting,
Right.
with night vision visor goggles, night vision goggles, but the kind that attach and they're flat down to these helmets, and they're wearing all dark. And two guys come over to me, and then I see two go down the hallway
Wow.
to her room. And I'm not quite sure what I do, but next thing I know, I'm stuck in the neck by something I ended up later researching, and was a device that I understand. It was kind of like a taser kind of device. It was
Right.
called a sticky shocker, but it does this thing where it sends a pulse and it can temporarily immobilize you. It's not the taser with the lines, but another kind that's like a single thing
Right.
that sends a pulse and causes you to muscle spasm, basically. And that's what happened. So
Wow.
suddenly I'm not able to move, and my body had the sensation from the neck down of like when your leg falls asleep.
Right.
Mhm. And one of the guys goes and gets me up off the futon, and next thing I know, I'm able to stand, but not really well. It's like standing on your leg when it's asleep.
Right.
And I see two more guys that had come in at the same time they did go down the hallway. Initially, I saw that already. Well, as I'm there, I now see them carrying her. She's not walking. They carry her out of her room past me. And there's a guy in camouflage with a headset on talking to somebody, which I later realized was a van parked out front. And she had an upstairs apartment on the end of her building there. And they carry her out and down the stairs ahead of me, and I'm walking, but a guy kind of has under my arm, like, and he's helping me because my legs are kind of like, I can't quite walk. And so we're going down the stairs, and the end of the building was all dark, which later made sense. I'll tell them about the lights.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what you need to do is the coffee table.
And the coffee table. Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. The coffee table. So just so you guys know, I'm turning. Misha's in the room with me. Obviously, I'm turning and getting clues from her if you can't hear. But when they took me out off the futon, and I couldn't quite walk, she had a heavy glass top coffee table that sat on these legs that were like elephant horns or something that bent out. It was kind of that African, ethnic stuff. And they bent out and it just sat on there. And what happened is I walked, the guy at the front door in camouflage signaled to me, like, come over here. Maybe he was signaling to the guys, but I thought, he wants me to go over there. Well, it's dark. I'm half asleep. I slammed right into the coffee table. And as I realized, as I tripped and I'm going to fall over it crosses my mind that it's glass. So I turn and twist away like, oh shit, that's glass. I don't want to go through it. I turn and twist away, but because my body's like, my legs are asleep, I fall back hard on the floor.
Oh my God.
Well, it turned out later, the guy who lived below her had said, like 2 days later, what happened the next day. I told you the next day. What happened last night? Did your bookshelf in your living room fall over? Because he heard a loud bang that woke him up, like something fell over in the living room. Well, no, it was Melinda knocking the coffee table over, which bent one of the legs, broke it off, and knocked the glass over, and then falling back, and me, like dead weight, falling and hitting the floor.
Wow.
And so, no, it wasn't a bookcase, it was Melinda hitting the floor. And, but the guy downstairs was woken up by this and later said something to her like, did your bookcase fall over? Okay, right? Yeah, okay. So I'd fallen, and then one of the guys helped me up. He was like laughing at me, like he's like, I can't believe you did that,
Oh, wow.
and helped me up. And then they walked me, and they'd already carried her down to put her in the back of this van.
Wow.
I remember when we walked along the outside the building, that end of the building was dark. What also turned out, I'm not sure the period of time, but days later or something, where her landlord had come around and said, what happened to the lights on the end of the building?
Oh, wow.
There were lights on posts and lights by each door, like porch lights. And they thought that something was wrong with the electricity, so they had an electrician come, and he had discovered there had to have been like at least 12 lights total or something, I'm not sure, but a lot. There were like 6 along the post and ones on the buildings. But they thought they'd got an electrician out thinking that the lights were out. An electrician came and said, no, each bulb had just been loosened in its socket, but they were still working. So someone had gone along, taken the glass ball off each light post, loosened the bulb, and the ones by the doors, upstairs and downstairs, on that whole end of the building, and loosened all the bulbs.
Creepy.
Right?
Yeah.
Remember that?
I want to make sure.
Okay, so that's just a piece of evidence. And then the damage to the front door, when they broke in, we had a lot of damage to the front door. They had damaged both locks, broken the locks, ripped the wood frame away from the door to loosen it to break in when they'd come in that night. So all that noise I heard waking me up that I thought was the roommate trying to get in was these guys breaking in to the house. And so then they took us down. They put us in the back of this van. I remember the van having 2 police escorts, which I'm sure was just dummy. It was just not really police, but 2 guys on motorcycles.
Right.
And I'm sure it just looked like, the police had pulled over a van, like they had some kind of cover, I guess, in place. It's, and we're put in the back of the van, like she says, and drugged. And like she said, there's bits and pieces of memory, but I was a little more awake because they didn't knock me out altogether. I was still conscious. They just knocked out with the taser kind of thing hitting my neck. So I just had lost control of my body, but I was still conscious. But in the van, I do remember something like a rag or something, and probably like a chloroform kind of thing, something that had gone over my nose and mouth that then made me pass out. So in the van, I was knocked out. It was just, I remember having a smell. They put this thing over, and I just remember, something went over, and then I passed out.
Right.
I remember it being like wet. So it was something with moisture on it. They put on it and I passed out. And I come to, and we're going through like a checkpoint, like at a military base. Wow. I'm in the back of the van, but I can hear the driver, and we're in the back, and there's a guy in the back at like some kind of console in the back of the van, like equipment, like a radio console or something in the back of the van. And then there's a guard driving and a guard in the front passenger seat. And we pull up to this like guard shack thing, and I remember him saying, da 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 da, okay, yes, you have access. And then like they're opening up a gate and us going through. And like she had said, we were either at Pendleton or Miramar in San Diego. There was some debate over when we got on the freeway, which direction did we go? Yeah, I think we ended up thinking we went in the direction of Miramar, but it almost doesn't matter. Right. Okay, so we go through this checkpoint, and then I thought maybe there was one more kind of checkpoint. Eventually, the van comes to a stop. Some guys open up the doors in the back from the outside, and we have both come to a certain degree. They help us out of the van. We're walked into a building that I remember being like a 1 or 2 story building. We walk in, but what I remember is there being like a foyer or an entrance. She's taken to the right, I'm taken to the left. That's what I remember. And so we're removed from each other. And at some point, I go down some stairs with someone. So we'd entered in a 1 story building, but next thing I know, I'm going downstairs. And a lot of stairs. I figured it was the equivalent of at least, if each level would have 2 flights of stairs, because that would be normal, right? You know, that I went down 6 or 8 flights of stairs, which would be 3 or 4 levels down. Just kept going, around, like just like as if in this hotel we start heading down the stairs. We're at 6 floors right now. If we went downstairs, there'd be like 12 flights of stairs. That's about what it was like, So I knew I was going down in a building that didn't look like it'd have a basement that deep. So we're going down and down. And we cut the guy a guard had me, guy in camouflage, and he was holding me by the arm, and he was pinching it so hard. And he would say, when I pinch your arm, stop. And if I walk with me. He says, stay with me. And he was right next to me. So if he stopped, I had to stop. So occasionally he would stop all of a sudden, and I'd take another step. Well, he pinched me, and I ended up getting this big bruise on my arm from where he was holding on to me. Wow. And
he's sleeping. He fell asleep.
We lost someone. They fell asleep. That's right. And I understand. It's been a long conference. We're all exhausted. So going around. Okay. We get to the bottom. I'm taken down a hallway and into a short hallway and into a room. And I remember it being like an office room. It had a wooden door. There was a big old desk. Kind of like, with a metal rim on it. Like it's just a standard old, like you'd see it on a military base.
On a military base. Yeah. I've been there.
And I'm backed up against the desk, and there's either a chair I'm sat in or I'm sat on the desk. I'm not sure. But a guy comes in, and like she said, military jacket, epaulets on his thing. I did research later, military uniform. And he just had it open. So he had a white T-shirt on underneath because he had a jacket it was blue with like brass buttons, and it was just open, like it was just put on and left open, and his T-shirt underneath. And I'm pretty sure they were the gray pants with the red stripe on the side. I think, although I guess maybe that's Marines. Not that it matters, but anyways. And I remember very clearly what he looks like. He had dark hair, a little salt and pepper, a little gray at the temples, and he was a good-looking man, but threatened me. And he started to say, like she was saying earlier, this is your final warning, no more, you have to drop out, this is it, you've got to stop, you have to get back to your life, this kind of thing.
Did they suggest you get married?
No.
Yeah, different.
No, that they did not suggest for me to get married. Right now, I'm also just so tired, so right now I'm just trying to remember what he said, but it was basically just drop out. This you have no future in this. They said that to me a bunch of times.
Oh, okay.
You know, in these experiences where they said there's no future in this for you. You know, actually I've had that said probably like 5 times. This is it, your final warning. You have to stop. You need to stop researching this. You need to stop looking into it. You can't write about it. You know, whatever. He's just saying, you're just done. This is the end of the road. This is it.
Right. Yeah.
And he's saying all this and cussing at me and stuff. And they said to impress upon you how serious we are. Like they said to her, there's someone we want you to meet. I'm like, who the hell is that? You know, we're gonna bring in the president or what? I mean, I'm like, seriously, what are they talking about? But there's someone we want you to meet. Now at that point, they took me out of that little office. But that's because you were in the other room first. See, and now I understand the switch timing makes sense. And someone who regressed both of us said it made perfect sense. She was in there with the reptilian, I was in with the guy, and then they switched places. Or you hadn't briefly, but I mean, it just kind of worked out in our regressions that when one was with one, the other was, and you know. So she had been taken down another hallway, but we had been taken basically the same area, but separated from each other, which all makes sense.
Right.
And so at that point, they took me out of this little office and they took me into a bigger room that had like an exam table, like in a doctor's office. Although I think it had more metal on it, but an exam table.
Oh, it wasn't soft.
What?
It wasn't soft.
Yeah, it wasn't soft. No, it was very hard. I remember. I can't say for sure. Maybe there was some padding, but it had like a metal edge. But anyways, anyways, not that matters. But they tell me to sit on it, and this guy then. 2 guards had come in the room, and I think we're standing in the back. But this guy exits the room after he took me in there. The same guy who had interrogated me. Okay. He exits, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden the door opens, like from the outside, and this thing walks in. Well, it's this big reptilian.
Now,
and it was.
Tell me, describe this reptilian.
How tall? I agree that he was very tall, like what Miesha said. She was.
Well, how tall?
I just remember having more green than she does, but he had yellow here in the front and on the front of his neck and on his chest. So whether we both saw 2 different reptilians, I don't think so. I think it was the same one, and I think we just have slight variation in how we remember, but we're seeing the same one because there's enough similarities.
Right.
So even if you cancel out the few differences, there's so many similarities. I think we saw the same one.
7.5.
Yeah. Like 7 foot, you know. I don't know 7.5 because
7 foot.
This is an 8 foot ceiling, it's probably a 10-foot ceiling. So, but anyways, I 7 anyways. But yes, okay, big guy, broad, narrow waisted, narrow hips, but big thighs, broad, big shoulders, big thick neck. You know.
Did he have a tail?
Looked like a linebacker with pro football.
Yeah. Did he have a tail?
I think, did he have a tail? I think so. Yeah. Yes, he did. Yes. Because I remember when he turned. Yeah. He had a tail.
What was your
and this big jaw that would stick forward, and the reptilian eyes, a ridge on his head, ridge above his eyes, ridge on his head. No, I think we saw the same one. There's enough similarities.
So, what was your emotional response with this?
I scared the shit out of me. I mean, I was also kind of intrigued, like. Because when they said there's someone we want you to meet, and when the guy took me in the other room and he said, now we're going to bring in who we want you to meet, and in walks this thing, I'm going, I'm expecting a person to walk in, so I was just like, oh shit. So yeah, no, I guess it was, I would say it was I was fearful, but I was also, I would say I was fearful, but at the same time I was like, there was a part of me that was like, oh my God, I always hear about people's experiences where reptilians and I'm getting to see one. So there was I did this weird disassociative
you're
thing.
You're afraid at the same time. You're so curious. You're excited. Well, it's like, oh, last it's happening.
Well, there's this disassociative thing that I do in my experiences, and literally in experience, I'll take. Well, there's 2 disassociative things. One is I will take like experiencer hat off and put researcher hat on, and go into like research mode because it helps me like deal with the experience and not the emotion. Like pay attention. You have to remember this. And there's a part of me that I think has been, that I know from other experiences has had a programming done with a personality A, personality B. Right. And I think there's this kind of this personality be real tough bitch that they've programmed. Pardon everyone the language, but and I think that person comes forward a little. So part of me, I think, was doing a little bit of that from previous experiences with them, combined with my putting on researcher hat. So I was like, wait, I've heard all these people talk about reptilians, so you want to remember everything about this because you're finally seeing one. So I was like playing researcher in the moment to kind of also disassociate, you know what I mean? Does that make sense to you? And what this being did with me, and like you, I feel funny about talking about it because it's so private. Like Miesha said.
What? Aren't you going to share too? Oh no, we're just going to focus on you guys. I can always talk.
But like Miesha shared, it's a private thing. What she had shared was she was suddenly in this scene like she was in her kids' home, and their family was all there, her grown children and grandchildren, and they
yours, not mine.
Come in and killed everybody. Well, in my experience, this reptilian proceeded. Now, I want everyone to know that while he pushed me down on the table, that was the end of anything that actually happened physically with him. Okay. But what was being projected in my mind, like he was doing mind staring in my eyes, I was given this image that yes, he had pushed me down on the table, but that he had then climbed on top of me, violently raped me, and then pulled me apart limb by limb. You know, yanked it, ripped an arm out of the socket, and ripped a foot out of the socket, and ripped the other arm out. But at some point, like she in her experience later ended up sharing that she said, like she's just expressed it, is this live or is this memorex, because she couldn't hear the sound. And so she saw her family screaming, but didn't hear the sound. That in my experience, I was like, at some point I realized, wait, I'm not feeling this. This would be painful. Okay, but I'm not feeling it. So at that point I went, this isn't real. I'm not feeling it. And I think I said something out loud like, I know this isn't real. I can't feel it. And then he backed off. He'd only had his hands like on my shoulders and leaning over me. He was very tall. So when from the knees down, they're off the table. From the knees up, I'm on laying back, and he's just leaning over me, pushing me down, staring in my face the whole time. So he had, other than pushing me down, there was obviously no rape or anything. But he'd push me down, and then when I said, wait, I can't feel this, I know it's not real, that's when he backed off. And then I was in shock because I thought I'd just been brutally murdered and ripped to pieces. I mean, the visual was all there. Like, it was very graphic, to say the least. And I was like just in shock. And I think I kind of got up on my elbows on the table, and I was ready to like fight him. I was there ain't no way he's coming back. I'm like, and he backed off, and he did this thing where he kind of shook his head and kind of went like tisk, like almost like what a shame, or it was this weird kind of, it had a sexual connotation,
Wow.
And I was just like, I think I was really like just ready to like, there ain't no way it's coming back. But like fight, as a first fight. And he backed off, and he turned around. Yes, I saw the tail clear. He turned around, and he walks out of the room. But just as he's going through the door, in comes the guy with the dress jacket and the military guy and the t-shirt and everything. He comes back in, and he said, "Well, now you see what we mean, how serious we are." He said, "If you go forward with this, next time that will be real. Next time that'll be real. Next time," he actually said, "next time we'll let him do what he wants." In other words, like the tis was like the reptilian had wanted to do something. I think it was all play acting, but in the moment I thought he was like, they were saying, next time he'll do what he wants. And I was just shaking. And then the military guy is standing there in front of me, and someone opens the door, or one of the guards in the back, I'm not sure. Somebody said something, and he turned, And like, okay, if you take a step, but you turn like this and your leg is trailing behind you, his leg was there. And I just had this brief moment of defiance. I swung my leg out and I was going to trip him. I just like swung to hit his calf and knock his leg out from under him, just in a moment of, I was so mad. I was just like, because I was ready to fight this thing. So when he came in, I'm still in that mode. So I'm just, and he stepped away so I couldn't reach him, but I saw his leg there and I just swung my leg. Well, he went from talking to someone at the door to turning and karate chopping me in the leg.
Oh my goodness.
So fast, like he literally had eyes in the back of his head. Obviously some good martial arts training, you know, but he blocked my leg. And I think I kind of hit him, but he turned and his arm came down to block my leg coming up, that I ended up with giant welts on my leg as a combination on both legs from tripping over the coffee table that night, knocking off a face and breaking it, and this guy karate chopping me in the leg. He went bam, and I went ow, you know, grabbed my shin, and I was like ow, ow, and cussing, you know, and he just started like laughing at me, like he literally like under stress said, or not, maybe said out loud, he goes, I can't believe you just did that. Like he was just laughing at me, like I can't believe you just did that.
Wow.
And I'm like going, ow, 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 because it hit. I mean, he karate chopped me so hard, he could have broken my, he just blocked my leg. But if he had really, I think, I'm sure he probably could have broken it. But, I mean, for a moment, I was just like, you know, and he just laughed at me like, I can't believe you just did that. Like he almost appreciated the effort or something, you know. I mean, I'm laughing, but it was quite funny. And at that point, I just like, oh my God. And then I was mad because I really wanted to trip him. So I was mad that I didn't trip him. And then the guards came over and they escorted me out of there. I'm not remembering a lot. At this point, I'm sure some kind of drug or something was further administered. I do think I was definitely drugged in the van. And I think in the room before they brought in the reptilian, I think I was drugged again, you know, and I'm sure probably something happened then to erase the memory. I remember kind of walking out and walking up the stairs. I vaguely remember getting back in the van. So I do. And then I think maybe I was, that's it. Now that I think about it, I was drugged in the van again. So that's the next time I was drugged, was in the van. And that time I was given a shot in the van and I'm drugged. And then the next thing I know, it's waking up in the morning and, you know, back on the futon bed. And, but we had the broken coffee table, the evidence of that, a few other things kind of knocked around, the door frame and the door locks. She had new weather stripping around the door, and the wood had been pulled away like someone had got in with a sharp object and pulled the door frame, like glued metal that was painted, had pulled it away, like ripped it and pulled it away. Did you tell
our landlord? I mean, how did you remedy all this?
Yeah, I think your landlord, accused you of doing something, because I know it was like a week or two before, they just repainted the doors and put in new weather stripping. And it was brand new, and new locks and everything.
And I told them that somebody tried to get in my house.
Yeah, that's right, you told. So, yeah, Miesha had just told him, when the landlord said, what the hell happened? She goes, someone must have tried to break in.
Okay.
So she just said, someone tried to break in. Well, I mean, because it was obvious that there had been break-in damage. And so Miesha said, oh my God, someone must have tried to break in. So she had it covered. The guy downstairs had heard me trip over the coffee table and fall dead on the floor.
Yeah.
And then the landlord had to ask all the neighbors who had unscrewed the lights, because all the lights had been unscrewed on that end of the building.
Wow.
So now go.
What? Yeah.
That's
And then the other one. Yeah. So that's that experience. And it was obviously the purpose of that whole experience was to threaten us, scare the shit out of us.
So what about the one at the Super Soldier?
Okay, so the Super Soldier one, at that one, I went with a friend from Sedona who wanted to go gamble and maybe attend a little bit of the conference, but she just said, I'll go with you, I'll drive. I had a hotel room for free because it's a speaker, a hotel room. And so she said, So I said, come with me. So, and she said, do you mind if I go off and gamble? I said, no. And she said, well, she had offered just to pay for all the gas because she wanted to go gamble. So she said, I'll drive and pay for the gas. But I said, well, you can stay for free in my hotel room. So I knew she was going to go off and gamble. The conference wasn't really her thing. And this was I think it was the Sunday night at the conference, but not that it matters. But I go to bed. I'm awoken by, again, like someone coming in the door. Now the lights are off. It's probably 3 a.m. or something. I know we went to bed at like 1. There was a discussion about that. I had gone to bed actually a little bit earlier than my roommate. She had gone to gamble. But when she came in, she woke me up. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, no, I'm kind of still awake. It's okay. But all of a sudden, someone else is coming to the door. No, I thought for a moment that she had gone out to gamble again. And I go, what? She's waking me up again. You know, I think I even started to say that. And then I realized coming out of the darkness, because, you know, in these rooms, you can still get a little bit of light, you know, like that there. That I realized, oh, shit, this isn't her. This is
somebody else. 2
military guys, you know. And I was fighting, trying to stay awake. And I heard a noise of something in the room that I did some research on, and it's this, I want to say like EMP electronic pulse machine. That I think if you're already asleep, it's like a wave, you know, and it keeps you asleep. Because what happened is I kept nodding off, and they kept saying to shake me, stay awake. I'm like, no, stay awake. I mean, they sat me up. I would do this, and they'd shake me again.
Wow.
And I think because my friend was already asleep, that was keeping her asleep. That's why she didn't hear them come in. She slept through the whole thing.
Wow.
So unfortunately, I don't have her as a witness. She slept. But I think that's what kept putting me to sleep. They were having to shake me to keep me up. And they get me out of bed. And I had leggings and I guess a t-shirt on already that I was sleeping in. Anyway, so they escort me out of the room, and we go out in the hallway, and I see some other of these military guys and other of the abductees. Now,
you said they took about 10 to 15 people?
But from different floors. Because then what happened is we're taken into the little service elevator area, not the main elevator, but, you know, like any hotel, you get the little, you know, through, it's a metal door, and then you go through, and then there's linoleum and, you know, service. And I think the service elevator, was right off where the vending machines were on that floor, I think, you know, bayways. But it's a service elevator, and we're in that area. And there's a couple of us and a couple of these military guys. And then an elevator stops, and when it opens, I see some of the other folks I know from the conference on the elevator already. So they were from another floor.
Wow.
And then we get on the elevator with them, and there was probably 3 people from my floor, and, you know, 2 others and me. I don't get an exact
what year
count.
Was this?
What?
What year was this?
2012?
Wow, 2012.
Yeah, 12 and 13 on that.
2012.
Okay.
So it's just recent.
Yeah.
And so we get on with these, the service elevators are pretty big. So now there's probably 6 of us, plus some guards on the elevator, you know,
Wow.
at least 5 of us, probably 5 of us.
And you're all walking on your own accord, and you're not,
And we just like look at each other like.
And they're just directing you. How do they get you to walk?
Like everyone's just.
So nobody's
scared.
resisting.
What?
Nobody's resisting. You're just.
No.
They say get up and walk, and you walk.
Yeah, I mean, I had been.
Capone.
Yeah, well, I just know that machine was keeping me half asleep. So by the time they got me walking in the room towards the door, I was still overcoming this click, click, click in the background, which I recognized was the sound, which I realized I had heard before and since. And anyway, so click, click. So I'm like, wait a second.
So they've got you kind of revitalized, and you're all walking.
Yeah, but I mean, you think, oh, why didn't you resist? Because in this experience, you don't think of that in the moment. You're too overcome by fear You know, and also there's that part that's like you were saying, like, what's going to happen? So there's that somewhat curious part, like, what's going to happen next? What am I in for? And I'm curious. And the researcher hat goes on, and, you know, and maybe some past programming. I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, the other experience, I clearly had a moment of resistance. And there's other experiences, but whenever I have resisted one of the experiences,
you have repercussions.
Yes.
All right,
and
so
other cases I've worked with have had the crap beat out, particularly guys who think they're going to resist in the experience have had the crap beat out of them.
Wow.
And I've seen it happen.
So you've seen it. So you're.
And there's one other time in this experience where one of the guys, well, they didn't beat him up; they just put him down. But anyway, so they didn't kill him. Okay. So anyways, so we go down the elevator. It opens up. We go down a service corridor. We're in the hotel. You know, hotels have 2 or 3 levels underneath. Yes, we're underground, but it's not an underground base. We're in the hotel. And we walk down the service corridor, and we get out to a wider service corridor, and everybody, like she said, was lined up against a wall. And we're lined up. And one of the guys who was part of the event, one of the super soldiers, was in military uniform and was instructing us what to do. And I think everyone was looking at him like, oh shit, this was a setup. He was in on this.
Wow.
You know? I think we were all, like, people were looking at each other and looking at him like pissed off.
Was
like,
Lorian taken?
What?
Lorian?
Yes, Lorian was taken, yes. And she remembers it. She remembers parts, little tiny parts.
Okay.
But she did. She ended up calling me sometime after the event and cluing me in on some things that she remembered.
Okay.
And she said, I remember what someone was wearing. I remember what someone said and this other thing. And everything she shared with me that day on the phone matched what I'd remembered that I had not shared with her. You know, little details that matched.
Right.
That told me. And even now, sometimes she'll question and I'll go, wait a second, remember when you called me, you know, all those little details that I hadn't shared and they all matched, you know. And so in that hallway, we're then taken out, like she said, over a ramp or whatever, and it's a loading dock. And there was a truck back up to the loading dock that I would say was like an 18-foot truck, not a semi or anything, but, you know, a good size, 18, maybe 24 feet in length. But it looked like a Ryder moving truck, yellow with the dark blue and light blue stripes on the side, Ryder, you know, it looked like a Ryder moving truck.
Right.
But when they walked us up to the back of it, the inside of the back was a temporary mobile surgical unit.
Oh my God.
Which I've researched online and found. And the Red Cross has units like this. They don't use Ryder trucks, but they have temporary, like outpatient
So what did they do?
surgical units. And I remember there being like 3 exam tables. We're almost out. Okay, so I'll move it along. So in this experience, myself and 2 of the other people were put in these, and it was like, if I say outpatient surgery chair, that's not a laid down flat. Right. It's like a reclining. It's like a dentist chair.
Right.
Okay.
Dentist chair. Right.
And so 3 of us are on those. And in my case, and I'm not sure if everybody had the same thing. First off, I really thought that this was because I think it was like some of the perpetrators in the experience, some of the military staff and the medical staff were like being trained. They were being instructed by others what to do. So I think it was, I call it a training off, you know. And in my case, though, they went up my nose and they broke through 2 layers of bone going with a sharp device up in my nose. And there was a discussion about something to do with stimulating the ocular nerve and something about visual retention.
Did they numb you before they did this, or just
a little bit? Okay. Yes. Yeah, would have been extremely painful. So yes. No, they had a swab. I'm sorry. I'm tired, so you know it's late and I'm tired. We're here at the end of the conference, but they had a swab with something on it that they'd
Right.
stuck up there to numb it. Yeah, so
Okay.
they put a swab up
They
a
numbed
couple of
it.
times to numb it. But I remember the sound of this thing going through 2 layers of bone, crunch, crunch. And I remember I felt the pressure
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and my eyes were watering
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a little bit of pain, maybe just a little. It was the
You think
equivalent of
they
like a dental
implanted
procedure,
you?
but they went up the nose and they were doing something and my eye was twitching. They said something about stimulating the ocular nerve and something about visual retention. I'm not exactly sure. And I was all concerned and scared to death about what was happening to me, but also paying attention to what was happening to people next to me, trying to get a sense. I don't think we all had the same thing done. Maybe, I don't know. But I was so caught up in my...
Do you have any sense of what yours was about?
Well, they kept saying something about, what do you see? Like they were stimulating the ocular nerve and wanted me to describe what I was seeing.
And what were you seeing?
And I think that there was something, and one of the other guys there at the conference who ended up remembering part of this, who they've used in some remote viewing stuff before, thought that they were having him do something like that. And he was sitting in the chair to my left in this room. I think I was in the chair in the middle, I think with someone on my right, I'm not sure who that was, and I think he was on my left. And I think they were doing the same thing to him. But I don't know, because if it was a training thing, we could have all had different stuff done. I don't know. But in his case, so I'm thinking maybe the 3 of us were having something regarding remote viewing and something about stimulating the ocular nerve. What do you see and describe? Like they were trying to physically stimulate and enhance our ability.
So this was
by
for their purposes?
I don't remember enough. I'm just saying I remember these bits and pieces of what they were saying, and that my team working on me was talking to the other team. So maybe the 3 of us in the truck right then. Now what had happened is this all went very quick, and after they took us off the truck, they brought in 3 more. Now, I think Miesha said maybe there was more than one truck. I only remember the one. But if there was only like 15 of us in 5 groups of 3, they would have been done. You know. So I think it was like that.
What were you doing when the
Because when we waited in the hallway, they were taking us in small groups while we waited in the hallway.
Right.
And one of the guys who was part of our group was put in a confusing position where he had to look at like names on a list on it. He had a clipboard and was calling us out and said, when I say your name, say here, you know, present or something. And he was checking us off. And he was very confused because he was there like as a perpetrator, but he was also like one of us. Wow. And so sometimes he'd stand with one of us and then one of the guards would say, no, we need your help. And they'd make him help. And then he'd go back and be one of us. And you could tell he was like really confused. Yeah. Well, I can say who it is now. That was Max Spears, who's no longer with us. That was Max. For those who are familiar with who he might be.
So
who died earlier this year.
Yeah, we know.
But anyways, so just after that, so he checked us off and we were taken in groups onto the truck. So other groups went before me. I think I was in the 3rd group that went.
Right.
And there may have been 5 groups. That would make sense. So I'm just guessing at all that. What I do remember is one of the guys who's kind of like a scientist, one of the presenters there.
Right.
In deep in some like projects and stuff. When they and he saw the surgical unit, the medical setup, he goes, "Oh hell no!" And he just walks off, he storms away from everyone.
And they let him go.
So you're talking about resistance. So he was like, he looked at the back of that thing and goes, "Oh hell no, I'm not doing this." And he walked off, and he starts walking down the loading dock. This is the loading dock at the hotel.
Yeah.
And he starts walking off, and one of the guys in camouflage, one of the guards, goes up to him and grabs him on the neck and drops him. I mean, he grabs him in a way that
like Spock,
the guy just goes, oh, like he just tensed up, and his knees started to give, and the guy just kept holding him as he went slowly down. So it's like his knees gave, and he's down on his knees. And then he leans back on the ground and he's just going, like it hurt,
Yeah.
And like the guy is like saying, say uncle, uncle, you know, like he's, you know, taking him down. He's going, okay. And he said, are you going to stop? Are you going to resist anymore? I remember the guard saying that to him. Are you going to resist anymore? Are you going to continue to resist? He goes, no, I won't. And he's going, just stop. Because apparently it really hurt. Whatever nerve he had, it hurt. And so that was Steve. Miesha, do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
All right, so we got to.
But anyway, so he stopped. So and then he lay there on the floor, and we were like, "Oh my God, is he okay?" And then he gets up and he goes, "I'm okay. But then he just stood there like he wasn't like it. Whatever it was, it hurt so bad. And they kept saying stuff to us like, "Do we have compliance? Do we have compliance?" You know, and one of the guards was telling one of the other guys, "Yes, we have their compliance." You know, kind of thing. And
we only have a couple minutes.
Okay. So that was that experience. Right. That was that experience. And eventually we're taken back up the utility. Now, there was a lot of evidence after that. 2 of the doors had the people closed their security lock at the night, like in hotel rooms, you know, casino hotel room. And it was ripped off where there was even some of the little screws holding it on the floor.
Wow.
2 of the people's rooms had broken door locks. And the hotel later blamed Lorianne, who was the producer of the conference, and said, your people damaged the locks. And she goes, no, they didn't. Someone must have broken in. That must have been the people who stayed here after us. Whatever. I think she got out of it. But she said they did try to accuse her of saying, your guests, people staying at your conference, broke the hotel locks. Like, you know. And but 2 of the rooms were damaged.
Side effects from this?
What?
And I should bring Miesha for just 2 minutes here. You're done? Okay. Have you had any side effects, either of you, from this?
Any side effects?
Like headaches?
Well, I had, that day I had bruises. One of the other girls at the conference, her and I the next day compared our bruises. We had the same bruises.
Bruises where? What part of your body?
On our arms, from being held, and handprints. We had bruises. That was one of the things that made me realize the next day was, first off, in the shower that morning, I get up to get ready to go to the rest of the conference, and I had all these bruises, and I showed my friend who was rooming with me, because she was up getting ready, and she came in the bathroom under the bright lighting and said, I had scratches, I had bruises. She saw that.
Miesha, did you want to say a final word?
Oh, I don't think there's time. I'm good.
You're good?
Oh, I don't really have.
Is this the mic?
Yeah.
I don't have anything.
Okay, you're
okay. Because I don't want to take your time if you do.
Good night.
Okay. Well, anyway, so that was it. But yes. So I mean, and then I had for days and weeks up to a period of about 5 weeks, especially for the first 3 weeks. I had all sorts of nasal problems going on, and I kept blowing blood. I kept getting bloody noses and having stuff come out. And that was one of the things that really confirmed for me something had happened, because I remembered a lot of it consciously. And I had the bruises on me. I did have other physical symptoms, and I was having stuff come out of my nose.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that's okay. And then I all remembered the Ryder truck part. And then Lorianne said one of the guys called her, and he remembered the Ryder truck.
Wow.
And a couple weeks later, Lorianne called me that she'd remembered some stuff. She remembered what 2 of the people were wearing and certain things that were said that matched my memory.
Do you think you received implants? Because I've had an implant.
I thought in that procedure, like, could that have been an implant going in? No, I don't think it was. I mean, maybe they put something up there. I can't rule that out. I don't remember seeing anything on it. I remember it being like a little wand with like a light on it, and they said something about stimulating the ocular nerve, and they kept asking me, what do you see? What do you see? So they were messing with the ocular nerve and what I saw, and they kept saying, do you see this? Like, we're going to describe a place, describe what you're seeing.
Website.
Yeah, my website is for my UFO sighting tour, so it's UFO-sightingtours.com.
Thank you. Thank you, Miesha. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you for having us on.
Much love and blessings. Aloha.
listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Who owns you? If you're not in control, then someone else is. Join me, Ivy West, for Voices on the Wind, Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in Studio A. I discuss government, health, metaphysics, suppressed science, universal mysteries, little-known incredible facts, alternative energies, and even more than you can imagine. Won't you join us on Revolution Radio Saturdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern for Voices on the Wind with me, Ivy West.
There are lives in the balance, people under fire, children at the cannons.
Because if your head's in the sand, your tail is a target.